When it comes to fans of the DCEU, yo, there are a ton of people now who are in complete chaos over what's going on. So I'm sure many of you have heard by now about this James Gunn Henry Cavill situation. If you haven't, well, I'm going to tell you all about it. And if you have, I'm going to give you my thoughts on it here on this video. So apparently what was going on is that, and let me catch everybody up. So Henry Cavill plays Superman in the DCEU. He played him in Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, both the Snyder Cut and the Whedon Cut, as well as he reprised his role as Superman in the cameo for the mid-credit scene of Black Adam. And I'm sure most of you have already seen that. If I'm spoiling that, I'm sorry, but I mean, the movie's been out for like 3 months now, so I mean, what do you want me to tell you? But let's talk about what's going on. So shortly, a few weeks ago, I want to say, or shortly after Black Adam came out, I think it was right after, DC made a whole reshuffling of everything, and James Gunn is now the guy in charge of DC's creative. Now, it's not just him. I think Victor Zaslav, I don't know if I said his name right, I think he's also involved, but James Gunn, is now the guy in charge, and I thought that was a good move. The reason why is because James Gunn is a filmmaker. He's a storyteller. He has experience writing various different types of stories, comedies. He has a dark sense of humor. He really can be a guy who, he took the Guardians of the Galaxy, which were not a very well-known comic franchise, and really elevated it to a new level. Like, he made the Guardians sort of mainstream characters through his films. So he's a guy who, a lot of folks thought was the right pick, but people are questioning this right now because apparently he and Henry Cavill had a conversation, and there were rumors that came out. I remember Josh from Den of Nerds did a post about how there's heat between James Gunn and Henry Cavill. There's some kind of issue, and that was days before yesterday when this story came to a head. So they had a meeting, and what's come out of it is apparently that Henry Cavill will not be playing Superman anymore in the DCEU. Now, let me read to you what James Gunn said and what Henry Cavill said. And I think it's interesting to look at this because both of them are painting a very different picture of how that conversation went, right? So James Gunn on Twitter says, well, we just had a great meeting with Henry, and we're big fans, and we talked about a number of exciting possibilities to work together in the future. So that was literally 12/14 at 5:49 p.m. So literally a day ago, right? Not even 24 hours ago, but close to it. So that happens, and it seems based on that Henry Cavill was open to playing Superman again because that's the character he was most famous for in the DC world. I would say The Witcher maybe might have come close, but Superman's such an iconic character that's going to be hard to top that. But if we hop over to Henry Cavill's Instagram, I think this is from Instagram actually, tells a very different story. This is what Henry Cavill said. I have just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran. That's who I was thinking of, Safran, yeah. And it's sad news, everyone. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman. After being told by the studio to announce my return back in October prior to their hire, this news isn't the easiest, but that's life. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them all and all involved with the new universe the best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. For those who have been by my side through the years, we can mourn for a bit, but then we must remember Superman is still around. Everything he stands for still exists, and the examples he sets for us are still there. My turn to wear the cape has passed, but what Superman stands for never will. It's been a fun ride with you all, onwards and upwards. So a lot of folks are pissed about this, and I can't blame them, because Henry Cavill, although to me Christopher Reeve is still the definitive Superman, Henry Cavill probably came the closest to, getting there. Even though Zack Snyder's writing for Superman is debatably, uncharacteristic compared to what a lot of folks' ideas are of Superman, Henry Cavill was dedicated to the role. After this meeting, it looks like he's not coming back. Now, the immediate thing to do is jump onto James Gunn's throat and blame him. I'm not sure if that's the case, but it is possible. And I'm going to look at this fairly here because I don't have a horse in this race. I am a fan of both guys for different reasons. It's unfortunate, though, because this once again goes to the absolute embarrassment that is DC when it comes to their movies. The absolute painful embarrassment that these studios have become lately. It's not just DC, but DC's been real bad at it. Constantly changing directions, constantly changing the visions of certain filmmakers because they didn't like it, even though they hired filmmakers to begin with that gave them a vision. Constantly approving things and then going back on them. I think of Zack Snyder. I think about how Zack Snyder made his Justice League and had to step away from the project because of what happened to his daughter, which was a very real tragedy. And then Joss Whedon came in to butcher the film. They spent all this money that wasn't even necessary based on the footage that Snyder had shot. The movie comes out. Then the Snyder Cut, I guess, movement started. Then we get the Snyder Cut and everybody's like, wow, this is much better. And then we have Darkseid teasing an eventual invasion of Earth at the end of that film that we're probably never going to get now. Because they chose not to canonize Zack Snyder's version, even though it was originally his film. They chose not to go in that direction. They chose to do something totally different. Because they don't like Zack Snyder. For whatever reason. I couldn't tell you. I understand that Snyder's direction was not the best from a lot of people's perspective, but at least he had an end game. At least he had a goal. They bring in other filmmakers who don't really have goals. The studio doesn't have goals. The corporation has no clue what to do. And then we're left with this. Literally 3 months ago, we have a post-credit scene teasing a Black Adam Superman fight. From what we understand, that scene was mostly The Rock, who has a lot of stroke in Hollywood, shooting that scene without the approval of DC, which sounds like complete BS because why would they allow that, first of all, if it's not their idea? And secondly, why would they now go back on it? So we have this tease for this fight that we're never going to get. They have teased Superman versus Darkseid and Superman versus Black Adam. And we might not get those fights. Or maybe we will get them, but it won't be with Henry Cavill. It'll be with somebody else. And that's 2 times now that DC's absolute, utter incompetence, whether it's James Gunn's fault or not, this is embarrassing that they have dick teased the fucking fans so much and they're not going to deliver on what they literally have promised in universe. It's not even about them canceling the Batgirl or changing the trajectory of what their future stories are going to be or even chopping up people's movies. Those are 3 separate problems. It's about the fact that you on screen have teased future storylines that you can now not pay off anymore. And we criticize Marvel for doing too much of that in Phase 4, but I'm pretty sure that Kevin Feige has plans to at least I would say 90% of those storylines are going to have a payoff. Maybe 100. But I'm going to go with 90 to be fair. Maybe 80. But it ain't going to be like this. Let's not forget that apparently, and I don't have information on this right now, but Ezra Miller's still okay with DC after all the things that he did. So you're telling me that Ezra Miller can keep playing the Flash and Henry Cavill can't keep playing Superman? Now we can't even continue from the Justice League movies anymore. Even though we know for a fact, based on spoilers I've dropped on this channel, that Aquaman and Wonder Woman and Flash are going to be those future projects. And I don't mean the Wonder Woman movie because that got canceled. I'm talking about Wonder Woman, her cameo in an upcoming DC film, I'm not going to spoil it, is pretty much based off of what she did in the Snyderverse in those 3 movies. So you've got a continuity that makes no sense now. Are they going to reboot everything and start over? Is that really what we want to see? They could always use time travel shenanigans in Flashpoint to change this. It just feels so like you don't have these problems in Marvel. Say what you want about Disney. When it comes to Marvel, not necessarily Star Wars, even though even Star Wars is not this bad. when it comes to like, you know, paying things off, even though, and maybe I shouldn't say that. Now that I think about it, they might be just as bad, if not worse. But Marvel certainly doesn't have that problem. They don't have problems bringing in actors or retaining them. Here we have a situation where whatever meeting happened with James Gunn and Peter Safran, now he's not coming back, and he feels bad about it. So it probably wasn't his choice. Will we ever get the real story on this? It's just a sad day because Henry Cavill will be all right. He's got a career. He'll be fine. He will be okay. He's a good-looking guy, charismatic guy, talented guy. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. DC, I assume they'll be fine, but now we have to recast Superman when it wasn't even something that needed to be done. Henry Cavill was fine playing Superman. So I'm hoping there's some kind of resolution to this. It is a developing story, but what James Gunn said on Twitter and what Henry Cavill said, I mean, when you look at it, James Gunn basically made it seem like, okay, well, we'll work together in the future. He might mean on another film franchise. He might even be talking about DC. You know what I'm saying? In which case, it does fit with what, it does fit with what Henry Cavill said, but it just seems like a totally different attitude. I don't know, man. DC fans are pissed. I understand why, because they've been jerked around quite a bit. What do you think? Let me know.